What's up, YouTube? So today I'm gonna compare the new Gearwrench 120 XP to the Gearwrench 90 tooth and kind of talk about the pros and cons and the differences and what I think about these two. It's a little bit confusing to have both these ratchets in the lineup because when the 90 came out, Gearwrench was basically saying this is the best ratchet ever in the world, and then a year later or so they come out with this thing, and now this is the best ratchet in the world, but the 90 is still the best too. So yeah, it's just confusing as hell. So having used both, I will kind of go over the pros and cons here a little bit and share with you my insight and my user experience, and hopefully that can help you make a decision, right? So let's get into it. Let's talk about the differences between these two. These are both the 1/4 inch versions. I think the 120 XP probably really shines in the 1/4 inch because of some of the dimensions that we'll get into. So let's start right off with the head. All right. So obviously the new 120, the head is much narrower, right? Like you can see it foreshadow this 90, or you can see the 90 tooth overshadow it when placed on top of each other. It's not incredibly, I mean, the 90 tooth isn't incredibly large or anything. It's just this is slimmer. Gearwrench has also made some changes. They put in a yellow, paint onto the logo here. It looks nice, sure, whatever. The switch is a little different shape. Honestly, they don't really feel too different. I actually find the old style a little easier to get onto because of that raised edge there. This one doesn't have a raised edge per se, but it's really tit for tat. That's not a big deal. Obviously the biggest deal is, these are the locking flex heads, by the way. The biggest deal is the locking mechanism on them, right? So they're very different designs. We'll get into that a little more in detail a little later and what I think about that. So obviously the new ratchet, it's a pretty ratchet, right? Like this thing is pretty sexy for a ratchet, and yeah, it obviously looks better than the 90 tooth. I think the 90 tooth looks kind of dated when put up next to this, and I think that has to do with this head, almost having a straight angle. There's no curve, no teardrop shape to it at all, and it is so slim, so that definitely makes it look very modern. Plus the touches like the painted logo and also having this button switch for the locking mechanism, it is just a cleaner, sleeker, more modern look, right? Like if we were talking about furniture, it looks very modern and simplistic. This has a lot more detail and everything that makes it look kind of dated. So let's get into the biggest differences. Obviously the shape of the head. So let's measure those. Make sure I'm zeroed here. Okay. Man, I can't. Okay. So 19.9. We'll do it again. 19.9. Try to do it again here. 20. So I'll just call it a 20 mil head, okay? Just to round it up things a bit. And this is a 25.5. We'll try that again. 25.5. Try it again. Oh. Okay. 25.5. Yeah. So this is about, say, 5, let's just say 5 mil wider, okay? 5 millimeters, not a huge difference, but it is a difference. And then the thickness here, so that's 19. We'll do this one here. That's 18. And I've measured this 3 times. I'm not going to do it again, but this is wider by 5 millimeters. Wider here, but it is also narrower by 1 millimeter. Now, me personally, I haven't really found the head of this ratchet to be so large that it limits me from getting into spaces. I'm not saying that this one You may run into a situation where this thing would, the slim head would benefit you, but I've never been restricted by the width of this head. The thicknesses are so close when you're looking at from this angle. I really don't think it matters too much, right? So they're similar, but this guy's obviously slimmer in the head, although I don't know how much that really would matter in a real use scenario. So let's talk about the flex feature. So this one starts off with what I believe they're referred to as ears. So these ears are much thicker than on the old one. Visibly, you can obviously see that. So in theory, that's good, right? That adds strength in that area. That's usually where these ratchets start to flex and break, is on those ears. Another thing to point out is the handle thickness. So it's a little bit hard to tell, but this handle on the new one is thicker. Zero out. Okay, so I'm getting a 10.68. And this is an 8.12. So it is a little bit thicker. And also longer. As you can see, you got, I don't know, what is that? Just gonna do a guesstimate. Not gonna do too much detail. I don't think it matters too much. So that's 16 millimeters, or a little bit over half an inch. So there you go. Maybe that's not fully accurate. I mean, these weren't lined up the greatest. And I'm eyeballing it. Yeah. I would say you got somewhere less than an inch and more length. The handles and all that are the same. So it is nice that it has the extra length. That just means a little bit more torque. That you can apply torque a little easier with that added length if you need to. These are 1/4 inch, so not sure how much that matters, but it is a difference nonetheless. Also, you can see some people really make a big deal. This one uses a snap ring, and this one has screws, and they're Torx. Camera's not really picking it up that well, but they're Torx. So some people see that as a plus. Never been that big of a deal to me personally, but if it matters to you, know that this does have screws. All right, so let's talk about the flex, because that's why you're gonna buy this ratchet, right? Which design is better is the question. Obviously this one looks sweeter, not gonna deny that. Looks very cool, looks very badass, but how's it function? Well, there's a couple of cons with it. Let's say I have my bolt that I need to unfasten, and I'm working in a tight area, and I get down here and I realize I need to flex my head. Well, the only way to release the lock is from underneath. You push the button from the bottom. This may be a problem. You may be working in an angle as such that you cannot get to this button. Maybe there's stuff in the way here, pipes, whatever. And so there's no way for you to get to that button and adjust your angle. So you will need to remove your ratchet from your work area, unlock it, then you could get down, find your angle, and then you could lock it into place and do your work. All right, so that can be a bit annoying at times, right? I don't like that you can. I like the ability to be able to operate everything here from the top, and I'll get into it. So here you can see that this, if let's say I didn't think about it and I just put it in there, and then I realized, oh crap, I need to adjust my angle. Well, you can do that all from the top, and usually you're not limited at the top. Sometimes you are, but I find generally I'm more limited from space at the bottom. That's why I'm using a flex head. I'm angling it back like this, typically in most scenarios. So I like to be able to hit that switch and control everything from the top. So I do see that as a con of the button. Now this one is well worn. But I will say that it is a lot floppier. This new one in unlock is pretty solid. Like, even if it's in unlock mode, these hold really well. And look, it's not moving in the unlock. This guy, all over the friggin' place. Holy. So that feels kind of crappy. Now I could tighten her down, which I probably need to do, but yeah, just know that. However, I really don't ever, I always have these locked in some position. I either have them straight, or when I find my angle, I lock them. That's why I like them. For me, locking flex heads are just the best. I don't like wasting energy on trying to get the adjust. You know, when you're pushing on something, you're gonna waste energy as if this handle is moving around, you're wasting energy trying to control this handle. I like that it locks in, so all the force I apply is just going where it needs to go. I'm not wasting any of my muscle energy or muscle, you know, trying to tweak this around as I move it. That's why I like the locking. I just, yeah, you know, being able to hold in your angle to me is invaluable. So that's con number 1 with the button. Here's con number 2. It didn't do this when it was brand new, guys. This is something that happened through use. I'd say light use. I'm not a professional. I'm a DIYer, and this happened on me. All right, no, it's not happening. Fucking camera. All right, I was like, oh, damn. All right, let's do that again. I have it locked in. Okay, it's in a locked position. Slight angle. What the fuck? I can just pull on it and it comes out of position. Now that didn't happen when I first bought it. That happened through use. But yes, I can snap it out of position, which is actually very annoying and can really mess you up when you're working with it. Look, so I'll do it from another angle. I'll have it locked in here and I'll push it and it just snaps straight. Same thing back here. Boom, I just bent it again. So what good is a locking flex head if it doesn't lock into position? Again, this happened through wear. So I think there's a few things going on here. Here you can look at the teeth. They are, you know, bent over a little bit, but honestly, they're not like, it's not like they're completely destroyed. They're there. There's not a whole lot of material missing from them. There's a tiny bit, you know, a tiny bit of scratches and stuff. It's not really completely ruined. I don't know if the camera's picking that up well, but yeah, I mean, I would say they're still in pretty good shape. Let's compare them to my old one. I mean, this one, yeah, like the teeth definitely look better and look in better shape, huh? They're not as stripped out. And I didn't like abuse, you know, the 120 at all. That's just normal use. So I think primarily what the issue is how this engages. And I'm going to zoom in here. So there's the button. And when the head moves, see how that button moves? And you can see the air gap in there. You see, if I move this head, that rod pushes against the button all the way down to the frame of the ratchet. And the issue here is there is just way too much play in that button. If that button had a tighter spec tolerance, not so tight that you couldn't actuate it, it doesn't need to be that tight, but if it was just tighter and didn't allow as much play in here, then this wouldn't happen. Because what's happening is that the teeth that hold it in place are moving down. And so it's losing that deep bite on it that the gear needs, because this is essentially a gear, and then it slips out and just pops out. And the fact that there's so much play and space in that button is causing it. So I don't actually think it's the fact that it's a button design in of itself. I think if this was engineered differently and the spec tolerances were tighter on the button itself, I do think this would still work great. And that's my biggest complaint with this. I mean, this now is essentially useless to me as a flex head because of that. And that's really my biggest gripe with it. In theory, it shouldn't happen, and I don't think it needs to happen. This design has never done that to me, you know, because it doesn't really, it does have a little flex when you move it. It moves a little bit, but rather than moving down, it moves this way more, right? So it presses up, so it still retains that bite on those gears better. And it also, it's hard to see from here. Maybe some people are more familiar with how it works than I am, but it seems to me like it engages on both ends. So that's probably another plus for it and why it's able to hold so much better. Because this is, it's like a, I think it does have 2 engagement points as well, but it relies all on that single rod. And if that rod can move up and down, then it's no good. Then this thing will slip, and it's crap. And I'm gonna wrap it up here, guys, because it's getting into a long video. But the last thing I will say about it, another reason why I'm not a huge fan of this, is the 120 XP mechanism. You know, I've owned the 120 XP ratchet in the past, and I replaced it with a 90 tooth, and I absolutely love the 90 tooth. Obviously, you get a lower arc swing with this. However, the arc swing is so low on this already, I really don't feel that point matters. I personally have not run into, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a situation where you need an even lower arc swing degree than what this thing already provides you. And why I don't like the 120, even though it sounds smooth, right? Very smooth. Obviously, it has more engagement points than this. Obviously, it's a dual paw, so it's not 120 teeth. It's 2 paws, and this is a single paw. This has a poppier sound to it, but you can definitely hear it, to me, my ear. This has more teeth, you know, it sounds like more teeth engagement, which it is with the dual paw design. But I realize why I dislike this ratchet so much. Very low back drag. You know, it swings very easily. So does this one. I would say this one, the 90 tooth, actually feels like it has more back drag. But there's kind of a point of diminishing returns with the amount of engagement. So when you have 90 engagement points versus 120, I'm not going to go by teeth, because essentially that's what we're talking about. How many times can it engage? I think what ends up happening, even though this has a low back drag, every time it clicks, that's a little bump that you feel when you're ratcheting. And so when you're doing fast ratcheting like this, obviously you can do it even faster, it feels slow. And it's because you're having to overcome every single engagement point as you move. So it's not as smooth when you're turning. So when you're trying to move fast, actually the less engagement points feel nicer. And I almost have another theory about what's going on as well. Maybe the bumps, you know, because essentially you're hitting a tooth and it feels like a bump in the road. And maybe the bumps are even shallower on this too. That might be another factor. But man, when I turn this thing like this, it feels so much smoother than this. I don't know. It just feels like more resistance, and I really think what I'm feeling is like kind of oscillations or waves as it hits each engagement point. It kind of creates like this resistance. Like you can imagine a car driving down a road, a bumpy road, right? Like what's smooth? What's gonna feel better? Driving on a smooth road with less bumps, or driving on a very bumpy road with more bumps? It feels odd to me. It's a feel thing, guys. So my personal recommendation, I would stick with the 90 tooth. I will say the new 120, I think, is a good ratchet. I would say if you can only afford to buy one of these and you're on the fence, I think get the 90 tooth. But if you already have the 90 tooth, or you're just looking to add another ratchet to your collection, I do think this one's worth it. I think the slimmer profile head and stuff maybe can be handy. Maybe it'll get you out of a bind. But I wouldn't use it every day. And the biggest ding against it is the manufacturing oversight or engineering oversight in the button switch and not having a tight enough tolerance causes this thing to slip. That's just a bad design. So makes me hard to recommend it. I don't know if everyone, maybe yours won't be like that. Maybe their tolerances are so varied that mine has this problem and yours won't. It's possible, right? But I just wanted to share what happened with me and my experience with the world. And I still think it's a good ratchet, but for me, I'm gonna go with the 90 tooth. Thanks. Out.